Hello and welcome to Dev Game Club, a weekly podcast in which two veteran game developers look at games from the past and talk about their impact and relevance today. I'm Tim Longo Jr., and I'm joined, as always, by a man who is sketching his enemies to death as we speak.
Brett Duville. Yeah, I'm thinking about getting a new iPad Pro so I can sketch my enemies to death. That's my plan. Makes me
sketch magic.
There's a hilarious little, I don't know, GIF or cartoon or something from LA Noire, if you remember that game from 10 years ago or so.
I didn't play it, but yeah.
Yeah, well, so there was this thing in that where he's got like his little notebook and, because cops have the little,
Yeah, right.
little
flip
they
book.
report things, little flip book. And there'd always be in there a picture of the person, an illustration of the person he was interviewing, like, so you stylized, like, drawn like illustrated. And somebody made a great comic, which was like every time he's interviewing, he's scribbling and he's just like giggling to himself as he draws them. It's a really, really funny kind of comic. Anyway, we're not talking about LA Noire. We are in fact talking about Final Fantasy VI, and Relm, I guess, is coming up there.
Yeah, right.
Her weird thing.
Funniest, I don't know. I mean, what's his name? Strago.
Strago.
Her grandfather's also an interesting, fun character, but Realm specifically is like, kind of an out of the blue, fun. I haven't really done obviously much with her, but fun character and then just the fact that she's sketching. There's just we're jumping ahead, but some moments where she's like, she threatens to sketch somebody and everyone's like, no, don't let her do it. Just calm down. You don't want her to do that or whatever, so it's like this funny, like threatening action, from this little girl. So pretty unique character, pretty memorable, I would assume. Wait, isn't Realm, wasn't there a Realm in Kingdom Hearts? No, I don't
think so. No, that's not her name.
I thought there was a character. No, not it was. I don't know if it. Anyway, yeah, I feel like Realm is ringing a bell in another. But you would know if anything.
I mean, there are all these realms, REALM, in, but there's a character named Relm.
Okay, yeah. Anyway, so Final Fantasy VI. Here we are. This is our fifth session. Do you think we are?
We've still got a ways to go.
Are we talking 7? Eight?
This is our fifth. I think we're talking 7.
Yeah,
I think we're talking 7, but I think there is a lot. So this game still hasn't opened up.
Yeah,
fully.
Yeah.
That's going to happen. You didn't quite get through, and people know from my stream that I was like, "Oh, Tim's going to hate me," when I was on the floating continent.
Oh, geez, I hate you. Yes, I hate myself. To be honest.
Yeah, I was going to say this was not my suggestion. But in any case, I'm still kind of picking my tongue up off the floor from you suggesting this game. But
me too.
We are to that point, though, basically, after you get to the end of the floating continent, I believe, although there's some significant things to happen that are still linear, it's going to open up pretty significantly. And I still don't want to tell you what happens because it's such a shock, I think.
Man, you're really building this up.
What happens next? Yeah.
So, yeah. I hope it lives up to it. But so I mean, it feels, the floating continent feels like a culmination of some kind. Yeah, it feels like it's definitely peaking, and I guess basically we've met the final two characters that we're going to meet, which the linearity of the game seems to sort of dole those out, right? And then now we've met Strago and Relm, and I know there's a Moogle that I can still get. So that's probably the last one. I thought it was going to be Leo, but I guess we'll talk about that. That's definitely not going to happen. Well, not definitely, but who knows what can happen in these games, but it seems like not. He's not in the manual either, so I assume he's not a character you can play. Yeah, and then the airship is back, so that so it's like they're setting everything up. It feels like to be able to be open. But yeah, it'd be interesting to see what happens to this, whatever this big event is. Although I guess being on a floating island right now, I can maybe guess at something that might happen. But now that I'm thinking about it, I will, with full disclosure, when I got frustrated with it last night, started getting late, and I was like, well, I don't even know how close I am to finishing this thing. I probably was 3/4 of the way through, but maybe 2/3.
Well, I'm also
so I did look at the map.
I'm kind of glad you didn't, because after the big event that I've talked about, I think it's a while before you can save again. So that's not good. Yeah, you would have been maybe in trouble for that. I don't know how far. I didn't see a save point, although I've been playing on the SNES Classic, so I was just like, well, I'll just save here, and I just did a
oh god, I really
hardware
wish.
Save. Yeah.
Not only that, but on this, but I was so I mean, we'll talk about it, but I was frustrated enough to where I was really wishing that I had the rewind as well.
The rewinds, yeah.
Because I have a really, we talked about this with the Vector Fortress or whatever, the Fortress in Vector, where you had some of those, the navigation stuff and the shortcuts and the, the paths to figure out pathing puzzles. I have a really, like, when my spatial sort of connections are disrupted by something very different, and meaning combat in this case, or in both cases, where I'm like, okay, I'm on the lead on a path that I want to try, and then a combat happens, and then I'm totally like, embroiled in the combat, and then I, using all my mental energy to vanquish some of those character or enemies on the floating island, actually pretty difficult for me. And then I'm done, and then I come, okay, I take a breath, and I come back. Okay, where was I now?
Exactly,
I don't remember where that teleporter went. And then I end up, so what I ended up doing a lot of the time I spent on that place was retreading territory. So I did bring up a map eventually, but ironically, the map doesn't really help you that much, because you really can't tell from the static map what the island does. So
yeah. I mean, we might as well just keep talking about this, because
we're here. We'll go backwards.
Yeah, we're here. We'll go back. Do you ever wish you could rewind time?
Yeah.
So I had the same problem, and it's a known thing about human psychology that changes like that mess up your spatial awareness and your memory. So we have a short-term memory. This is a true fact of human psychology, and it's not like this is new. We can only hold 7 chunks of information or whatever in our short-term memory. But if you go through a door, like in life, in human space, if I walk into, I had this happen today. I was telling Tim on pre-show that I burned my dinner because I walked through my door down to my basement to just make a quick note, and I just forgot that I had turned on the stove. Just literally forgot it, and then 15 minutes later went, oh, right, my stove. And I went upstairs to discover my blackened food. Anyway, if you walk through a door, your short-term memory resets. And the same thing happens when you have transitions like this in video games, where it's a hard transition. You're in a new looking space, and your brain goes, don't need any of that I had. I mean, this was great when we were walking between trees and there's like a new set of dangers. Who knows what, jungle cats are, hanging above us and about to jump down. It's not so great in the modern era. When we're hoping to, continue our consciousness from upstairs to downstairs in my case. But yeah, I mean, it's a thing to be very wary of. And even in this section, where one of the complaints you had before was that you couldn't see some of the changes that you made to the world. Here you can actually see them all. it actually will pan down and show you a thing happens, pan across, show you a thing happens. You're like, okay, I know where that is. But by the time you actually, like, you take another 3 steps from hitting that switch and you go into a combat and you're like, what? Now, where was that again? I mean, I entirely missed a big change in the world. I couldn't remember what had happened when I came back to it and ended up circling all the way back to the beginning. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, I think you're a little more power level than I am, but you know, what's more for me is that some of the fights, like I do find most of the time, but there's like the behemoth, when the behemoth is in the fight, or I met a dragon.
Yeah, the dragon's tough.
I assume is not a boss, but it was big and maybe mini boss or something. And then there's, well, although I guess the big giant guy I figured out because I just did him. But anyway, like, you know, some those I can't just even like phone it in, right? I have to actually like really focus in a couple of those battles, and then my brain goes even further away from where I was before. And the contrasting experiences, you know, it's not just going through a door for me. It's like, it's a whole different game, really, right? When you're going to the combat and then you go back, and so it's like, just so many differences there. And I did the same thing, went in circles multiple times, taking those portals, you know, back and forth, looping. It's like, wait, I just took this portal. I literally just took it and went back to where I came from. And then there's the random encounters where it's like, I'm afraid to, like we talked about before, I'm afraid to explore or try anything because it'll trigger that. So
someone suggested to me on stream buying up a bunch of smoke bombs so you can quickly escape from combat. Which is what those do. I didn't do it, but it is a thing you can do, right? Is to buy a bunch of those. You know, and
do you need well, you can always try to run anyway, right? That's you don't even need a smoke bomb. I haven't tried that, actually.
The smoke bomb will make you escape, period.
Instantaneous.
Yeah. I don't think it's a chance. That's what it's for, is to get out of combat. So it's not like running where it's a chance.
Right. Oh, running. Okay. Yeah. So I guess maybe I should run more. So it's a chance with running? Like, you could try running and it may not work?
Yeah, I think there's situations where it doesn't work. I mean,
it's probably the case in Final Fantasy.
I think it's a fairly low chance that it will fail unless you've been like back attacked or whatever, you know, unless you're basically
surrounded.
I think there's cases. Yeah, the pincer attack, I think you probably can't run from at all. And then maybe if you've been back attacked so that you're, you know, kind of on your back foot going into the combat, it might be a higher chance you can't run away. Yeah. I don't know. These things are knowable because people have, you know, dug into these games like crazy, but I don't know. I just suspect based on other Final Fantasies.
There's, looking at the map though, there's apparently a couple spots where you can return to or at least one where you can return to the blackjack. The airship?
The ship. Yep, that's correct. That's correct.
I couldn't quite get there. So it's just the path.
I did, and I went and bought. And we can talk about party composition, but I went and got. I was using Terra, Locke, and Edgar. Right, he's the king that you don't like. Edgar and Sabin, right? Yeah. So I had Edgar. And I went and bought his additional tools at Figaro Castle. You could go and there's a dude in there who will sell you more of his tools. So I bought.
Mid
floating continent. Yeah, I
you just left.
I left and then came back. So you get to a point where you're like, you know, it's like, do you want to jump off? And I'm like, yeah, you know what? I'll go do this thing that somebody had said I should do in chat. And then I'll come back, you know, because at that point I knew how to get where I was, you know, how to get to where you can leave.
Do you start over when you come
start
back
over at the top? Yeah, you start over at the beginning. But at that point I knew what I had to do. You do have to re-unlock things, like you have to redo the steps, which I think is probably good, because I think there's a chance, like you could go do other stuff for hours, right? Because you have the airship, you can just go anywhere you want in the world. You could grind, whatever.
Yeah.
So I think that they want to reset it so that you have to do the steps so that you can see them again if it has been some period of time. So I think that's not terrible, but the fact that there's so much random battling there is prohibitive. People were like, you should take a break for your sanity, when I was playing on stream. So and then I managed to somehow forget to save, and lost like an hour of, which was only just grinding. Like I didn't lose anything having done that, but it was just funny to me that I came back and I was like, wait a minute, some things I did are not here. Weird.
Yeah.
And I reapplied the, relics. And I often forget when characters come into my party that they might have no equipment. They might have no relics and no, whatever. The equipment might need to be upgraded and things like that, and I forget. And so, I'm going, and it's like, man, these guys are just not doing it. And then you go look at their equipment, and you're like, oh, well, there you go. There's your problem right there, sir.
Yeah.
So
I was so distracted the first time I was exploring it, I totally missed Shadow. Laying down there in the beginning, and I was just playing with 3 characters, and I was just like, and I mean, I was doing fine because I was using resistance or vulnerabilities and stuff, but yeah, I think I saw somebody down there, and I'm like, oh, that's just a dead guy that was from the battle or something. I didn't even think to go over and interact with them. So yeah, anyway, that, I just made mistakes. And then, so let's see, if I'm saved there, then I actually would probably have to reload a previous save to even leave, or get to the ship, because I don't think I can leave from the beginning.
You can't leave from the beginning. You have to leave from further on.
Because I was told to go to, after the whole talking to troops thing, I was told I could go to the base to the east and pick a weapon of my choice or something like that, and which I didn't get a time to do. So I don't know if that would help, but yeah, I feel like I don't know if the Edgar thing happened. The Edgar thing that people were alluding to being even worse than what he's been like before up to this point was the weird creepiness with Relm that happened there for a moment. I don't know if you caught that.
Was that Edgar, or was that Shadow?
No, it was Edgar. It was Edgar down below.
Yeah, he's like,
they were in town, and he's like, how old are you?
Go there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Or you're growing up too fast or something like that. Slow down, you're growing up too fast.
Yeah, something.
Apparently in Japanese, that was something somebody alluded to and sent us email about previously. Like, watch this after you've played. That is much worse in the original Japanese. Right. It's like it was, I don't think the word jailbait is used, but that is the sense of what he says. Like, I'd get in trouble, or something like that. I can't remember the specifics, but it's, it's not great.
Not good. Yeah, so I actually took him. Yeah, I took him out of my party. I committed.
Did you?
I did. Yeah, I took him out. So I have.
You did it for you.
I did. Yeah. I have. I have Tara, Celis, or however you say her name, Sabin, and Shadow. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So. No Locke though. Probably should have Locke. I feel like he's sort of like main character, but Sabin is a good kind of tank, I've found, and I have him dual wielding, so he does 2 physical attacks, which is good too. So there you go. Starting at the ending, ending of the sessions for us. So, I don't know. I mean, am I dreading going back to the island? Yeah. I mean, It was in the evening, you know. So I mean, it was at night actually after our D&D session. So I was, you know, I had saved that. I didn't think it was going to be as elaborate as it was. So I was tired, of course, and it wasn't the best state to play that section in. but you know, I'll make sure I'm refreshed before I dive back in. So yeah, but I mean, as far as like the beginning of the session, we came out of the mountainous area, right? We're to the base, coming back to the base. At least that's
Right.
where I stopped. And then we got to that town, and then and then your party shows up and says something about going back to Vector or something because the Espers have been causing trouble now that they're out, and they might have even mentioned that the Emperor's wanting to a peace.
To sue for peace, basically. Yeah.
But then basically we're in the airship, and I think the Espers or somebody attacks, right? And then we go into that flying crash.
Right. Yes, exactly.
Land.
Yeah, that's right. It causes you to crash land. I was like, wow, yeah. I get the order of these things mixed up, and I'm like reconstructing my head. Yeah.
I mean, I use my notes too as a little bit of a linear progression too. And the first one I have is flying and crash.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you crash.
Yeah. Sure. So I think you fight some Espers, or I think that's why that happens. But
yep.
But you know, it's another good use of Mode 7 for that. You know, kind of showing the out of control blackjack and then crashing, and that was kind of fun. Dog fighting I have down there. That's in the town. Okay, yeah. There's you. Once you crash, the first town I think you get to maybe that's taken over by the Empire. There were that town there was everything from dogfighting happening in the town to guards chasing women to women chasing guards. I don't know. It's just like, yeah, I think they're glossing over stuff because of their art style, but.
Yeah, that's Maranda, I believe.
Maranda, yes, right.
And you can go, they're basically you're in that area of the map where all the towns have been taken over by the Empire, and you can see if you choose to, you can go. I think we had been maybe to Zen already, and you can go to Albrook, where we had definitely been before.
Yeah,
and you can go to all those places and just see and talk to people and hear about how, they've lost their children to the war. They've had to send away their young men to be soldiers, or, how it's killed the economy or whatever. So you get all these kind of perspectives on those things of like how awful it is living under the Empire. Yeah. What the cost has been. They sort of set the stakes. So, it looks good then to try to get some peace going. But at the same time, that was the point at which I'm like, I don't believe this.
Yeah.
And I found it hard to believe that these characters would believe it, I think, was the bigger problem. Like, having had Kefka already double cross the party, at the, that we were working for him the whole time, I guess because the Emperor is older, and it might honestly play better in Japan now that I think about it. Yeah. Because, of course, that's effectively what happened at the end of World War II. There was just, shock and awe, deployment of nuclear weapons, which, Espers may be, I don't know, at least their impact might be, calling that back. You always wonder about that with Japanese cultural products, Godzilla and things like that.
Yeah.
It's like, is this an echo of that, or is it something different? But anyway, I mean, so that has happened, right? I guess maybe that lands better. I didn't even think about that at the time, but you had the aged, I think he was kind of an older emperor, and he, Hirohito, right? He surrendered. So maybe it does kind of make sense from that standpoint. but I didn't think about that until just now. So
yeah,
in the moment I was very much like, well, this guy's not going, this is not happening. And then the banquet was so strange, like there was sort of a weird, I mean, I guess it's meant to be sort of diplomacy where you're sort of like, he's offering to tell more and like you can choose to ask more. And of course that whole scene where you kind of, while he prepares the banquet, you got to go run and talk to all the guards as quickly as you can, which is quite funny.
Yeah, that was an interesting scene. I mean, I just the fact that there was dialogue trees. I mean, I don't know if that's, I guess that's probably a staple, but, and I'm sure they were in Final Fantasy IX, but there hasn't been any or very few so far in this game. And to have like, again, I think it just goes back to sort of like these one-off or fairly unique sequences that are designed and implemented for the scene itself, and right. So the fact that we're sitting at this table and it isn't obviously about combat or anything, it's just about talking and like you said, diplomacy. I thought it was cool. I mean, it was for whatever reason, it surprised me that it was happening, and you kind of like feel different. You feel like you said, feel like a diplomat or something, because you're sort of like talking to this emperor that you have seen a few times, but have been hearing about infamously, up to this point. And so I thought that was kind of cool. I mean, the talking to guards thing was interesting. I didn't obviously you don't know where it's going to go. And then it kind of like the fact that there is sort of there's a reward of sorts related to how many, I guess, you talk to.
Yeah. There's also some kind of level design jokes in there and things like that. Just like going all the way, as far like going into rooms and then just having like another room beyond it and another room beyond it. There's some just kind of light sort of game developer comedy there, going all the way and then entering into the bathroom and fighting the guy who's on the toilet. And I mean, there's just a lot of little jokes, really. I mean, it was both strange and like you're feeling this like time pressure, but at the same time, it's like not, it's all these little jokes. I don't know, it was a fun little section from that standpoint of just, there were several times where I chuckled, as I encountered these little moments like, that's a level designer messing with me right there. Like I went into this, you have to go zigzagging up these stairs and like, I mean, it's just very farcical, really, all the things that are happening there. And you get a couple guards who don't fight you first, right? So you're thinking, man, this is weird. I'm just going to go and just try to keep track of all the guys. And, and then sometimes one will, and then like my third or fourth one attacked me. So that was also kind of funny. Like, oh, I'm going to have to deal with that too. There was a lot. It was a lot of good stuff in there for a very short, like 5-minute scene. It was quite funny.
Yeah, it's clever and unexpected. You can. Did you try to get on the toilets and use the toilets?
I did. Yeah,
that was funny. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It's just the characters. It adds to the character of the game. To do that kind of stuff, and it to some degree, it might actually even add to the false sense of security that the treaty is real. It's like, oh, he actually wants me to do this. And maybe this is true, And I don't remember the exact lines, but I feel like to your point about not believing the characters would believe this. I feel like a couple of them seem skeptical, not the ones that I brought with me, but when you talk to some of the other characters, some of the other playable characters, I feel like a couple of them are sort of like, how could this, or, not necessarily being fully skeptical, but like questioning, like, how could this be like, so I had a little bit of a hint of it, but it did feel, it felt like, it felt forced to some degree.
They do try to reinforce it though with Sid, who seems genuinely remorseful. Like, and he is like, I'm a returner now, and
right.
That's,
and he probably is.
I think, and that gives it weight as well. Yeah, I believe that's true. And
Sid you have Leo as well.
Sid is
right?
one of those characters that they don't make dishonorable ever. right? I mean, just like that's meta. That's Final Fantasy meta there, but he's, because he's a repeating character, he
Right.
kind of has his role, right? And Sid lying to you is not really a thing.
Right. Well, and you have Leo as well, right? Who is ordered by who seems very valiant and genuine too,
right?
As a general, and then is taking orders from the emperor, and so you feel like, okay, well, this maybe is legit because, and of course they put Kefka in jail to add to the facade of it all, but then when Leo eventually finds out what's happening, he's also surprised and then pays the price for it. I mean, there's some cool little, like, just on the way there to mention a couple little moments that I want to mention. One you have to take Locke and Celis with you.
Yes.
I think so there's that one nighttime scene.
They're trying to establish that relationship a little bit more.
Yeah, right. There's that nighttime scene where they, I think for the first time, or at least one of the first times, where they kind of change they do a tint on the whole screen so it looks like nighttime, and Locke sneaks out, and I don't know if you noticed, but they played the opera theme, underscoring that scene.
Good pickup. I missed that.
Yeah, and I was like, that sounds really familiar. Oh, wait a second, that's the opera. Yeah. It's a
I noticed it when it happened, but I didn't realize, I didn't make note that that's what it was. I noticed in the moment, I was like, that's a cue. What is that? But I was streaming and kind of moved on. But yeah.
So that was kind of neat, and they're obviously they're definitely trying to do a lot with those two characters and sort of the back and forth. And I guess as a little bit of a call out, another quick thing to mention is, and I think that was a good example of a good scene example of this. I've just been very impressed with how much mileage they've gotten out of the animations they're doing with these 16-bit small tiny characters when it comes to the even facial expressions, posture, movement. It's just pretty. I mean, I feel like they're kind of, obviously we know they go to Final Fantasy VII after this, but as far as like being the masters of that sort of art form, I feel, without having any other form of cutscene to pull from, they just have these little tiny characters who, turn their head away or like put their head down, closing their eyes, squinting their eyes. It's just,
and also the pauses, they put in little pauses in the animations that give those individual poses weight and make you reinterpret them because of that weight, right? So it's like, when they're done for, like, sometimes those are parts of comedy, like, they might have the face kind of lower so that they can make it bigger, right, to make it pop as like, this is something crazy happening right now, right, or whatever. Different characters have done that. They use this sort of down face now as somberness, right? But they insert these gaps where there is nothing, you're not controlling, but it's part of the cutscene of just like a little pause, long enough pause, sometimes longer than you would really expect, of nothing, and to the point where you're like, oh, should I be control? Oh no, there it goes. So it's that too, I think, is that they find ways without actually doing anything new, by just inserting time, that changes the context.
The pacing's really, really good, and they they just have a good handle on how to take this particular format and presentation to kind of deliver some of these moments, and I think the Locke Celis night scene is a good example. There's a few others along the way. Locke gets seasick, on the boat, and they kind of show him kind of like, they use animations that they have at their disposal. They just kind of, use the tools they have to make interesting little moments out of it, like him, kind of tumbling around the deck as he's being seasick, and kind of falling over in a woozy way or something. So I just wanted to mention that. Oh, and then they use the same sort of full screen full screen tinting effect on the fire that happens at that what was that town's name? The magic town.
Yeah, I've forgotten already, and I have
it written down, but it's incorrect because I think I had auto correct messed it up.
I wrote down just Village of the Mage Warriors, so I don't actually have the name of the town.
Oh, maybe it started with a TH. Anyway, that was a cool storyline too.
Yeah, that's the Thanamos or
Thamasa or something.
Thamasa.
Yeah,
it was Thamasa.
Yeah. And I had found it earlier. Remember, this was the one I told you I had gone to earlier.
Yeah, and I was like, I have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, they had locked. Yeah. They definitely locked it out for now. And obviously now we know why. But yeah, it was. I just love the sort of uncovering of that. That mystery where you go behind that one house and there's that little boy practicing magic,
Yeah.
And you're like, hey, what's going on? And then it kind of dawns on you that magic is forbidden and all that kind of stuff. And then the history of it all kind of comes
or not
out.
Even possible. Like,
right.
Tara can do it. And it's like a huge deal, right? That she can do it.
Right. Oh, that's true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I forgot about that.
Yeah. These people are all descendants of, original mage warriors, I guess, where basically magicite had, you'd say in the sense of this world tainted their bloodline, right? That the people here have been cast out because they have magic in them, which came from them having been mage warriors before the Espers fled to the New World. So you're also learning about that, like, oh, the Espers left here to go there. There's a lot that happens in this section in terms of recontextualizing even the story of like, oh, okay, so this world did have magic. It seems like the Espers sort of took it with them when they left or something, and there's just like these changes of how you're thinking about this world. And of course, there are also people who can use magic because of their ancestors' contact with magic, presumably centuries before. So it's all pretty neat, and so economically told, right? I think that's another thing. Of course, we talk about all the time with these earlier games, right? Is how their story is told very economically.
Yeah. I mean, it's the typical thing where that constraints can really help creativity. Find clever solutions and kind of really sing. And I think this is a lot of this good 16-bit games are good examples of that. But yeah, I mean, I just, it's a little like Jedi-like, right? Warrior mages and kind of like being forbidden or hidden, at least in certain eras. And so, yeah, I mean, we already mentioned the Star Wars kind of like influences, but they mentioned that Strago is a blue mage. Somebody mentions that. And that was sort of, I feel like the first time that I don't really remember exactly what a blue mage is, but I know that like different colored mages is like a Final Fantasy thing. But it's like the first time that they mention that, in this game. So, yeah, it's how often, like it feels like the concept of magic being rare / even forbidden, is that a common theme as well? Have I asked this question before? Is that a common theme as well in Final Fantasy, or is this kind of a unique situation in this game?
I mean, it's always the case that you have characters who can cast it, right? So it's kind of weird to think of it as even being a theme. So it's hard for me to say, really. I can't really think of other ones where that's the case, but I'm terrible at remembering things like that about the stories, so I mean, my answer, I guess, is maybe, but I can't, it hasn't reinforced itself to me well enough for me to go definitely.
Right. Yeah. I just bring it up only in that if this is, through the Japanese versions, sort of canonically, this is actually the sixth one, and it wasn't necessarily consistent. Like you said, it's not something that jumps out at you, so it's probably not consistent. And I know you haven't played all of the 16-bit ones, so you don't necessarily have the the retroactive side of going backwards from this one. But I could totally see this one also resonating with people because of that, that if magic was a pretty common thing in the first 5, and then this one paints it as a rarity and a forbidden thing, that could have been a cool aspect of it, and a pretty big impact when you get to this town and you find these people.
I mean, it's a big impact anyway. Particularly because the kids are doing it, and it's like, wait, what? I mean, that's kind of amazing. You've had to go find these espers, to be able to do it, and learn spells, except for Terra, and so it's just weird, it's just exotic, in a way. Anyway, you're there. There's basically the reveal of all this happens through Relm being trapped in the building that's on fire, which was a pretty cool sequence. Pretty neat, they can't, the magic isn't enough to stop it because the fire's gotten too far. If you hadn't been here, they would have just put out the fire because there wouldn't have been any strangers around, but you're here and they're like trying not to do it. So by the time they actually do it, it's too late and you have to go in anyway. All of that was pretty good.
Yeah.
And you're just running around this house,
Yeah, but the effect on it, they do that full screen effect with the fire, so like the whole screen's kind of red, and you can try to dodge these fire creatures, and your Strago's with you now, and so you have a new character, and then of course Shadow has joined you too. There's a funny sequence when they wake you up in the middle of the night to go save her, apparently, and then Shadow goes back to sleep.
Yeah.
It's like, no, I'm not going to get up right now, but then, she makes friends with Interceptor, the dog.
Yep.
And he plays a role in the rescue. So yeah, it was a neat, felt like dramatic, exciting sequence. And I think it's also a good introduction to these two, really the final two characters for the most part, that are also, I think, pretty, for me at least, unexpected and different, having this old man and this young girl, being a child, which, did Final Fantasy IX have any? It must have had something like that too. That's probably not a new thing, but I don't know, just having an older character and a young character like that, is cool because they're not your typical. I guess Gao is also a kid, but I've pretty much ignored him, so he doesn't really fit.
Yeah, he hasn't really rated for me either. He's so odd, and we talked about his sort of, it's hard to control his skill. You don't know what his skills do, right? Is the real problem.
Yeah. So I have a sneaking suspicion though, and I don't know if somebody will correct or write in about this, and I probably won't look it up, but I have a sneaking suspicion that if you really devote time to him and really focus on him, he might actually be one of the more powerful characters because of what he can do. But mechanically,
but he only gets those on the Velt, right? Is the weird thing.
Well, I made this note last session that I forgot to bring up, but basically it feels like they thought to themselves, how do we make a character that's based on grinding? And, that the actual system or systems around him is based on grinding. And so if you go to that location and you just grind, like the way he gets better, right, is just through that. And isn't the concept with that, I mean, we're off topic a little bit, but the concept with that peninsula is that any of the creatures in the world can show up there, right? So you could actually learn a lot about the enemies by going there too, because they said something like, all the creatures of the world migrate here every year or something. So like, I think you'll see them from any, see them from any location.
I guess I missed that. I was thinking like, yeah, but you can grind, but you only see the same, 6 or 8 creatures. And then, but if the other creatures do actually go there, then I guess that's fine. And that's reasonable.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I think somebody had said that everyone migrates there. So I don't know. It seems like they're experimenting.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure.
Ultros shows up a few times or a couple times
Yep.
again. I
Our
guess
old fan Ultros.
we finally kill him in the sky
Yeah, at one
battle.
point he's like, "No, this is really the last time I'm going to show up," which is very funny.
Yeah,
It's very comical. Little fourth wall breaking there. Yeah, I know. I'm the comic relief enemy who always shows up. Yeah, it's very funny.
And Relm is involved with that too because she sketches him, right? And then there's this funny moment where he like, I guess it's because she sketched him. I don't really fully understand yet what her power really is, but in that story moment, it felt like she sketched him, and then he said something like, "I really am just an octopus with 8 legs," or something. Like it was sort of like she revealed to him what his true nature is, and it's sort of like that was the clincher for his, like, I don't know, confidence or something. So it's just a funny. Yeah, they're just, there's so many moments where you just feel like they're just having fun with what they can do, and just like, let's just do this, you can just imagine them sitting around thinking up these wacky scenarios. So yeah, I gotta hand it to him on that. But then we also have the Leo thing, right? Leo fights Kefka at some point. I forget the order of operations exactly, but he comes with you on the boat, and then you get over to the other side of that continent, and then there's a fight.
You go back. The Espers have broken free, but you've gone to where they are hiding out in the mountains, right? And you basically negotiate peace with them. They're like, "Oh, we didn't even mean for that to happen. We didn't know. We were so like, as we came through the gate, we were so like, infused with power, basically, that they kind of went a little crazy. But they didn't mean to be so damaging. Like, they just lost control. They hulked out, basically, and they apologize, and they're they're like, oh yeah, we'll definitely, take the emperor up on his offer. And that's when Kefka shows up. And Leo is very ticked about that, because it's like dishonorable, and you said one thing and now you're doing this other thing, and Kefka's killing the Espers and absorbing them and getting more and more powerful, which is scary.
Yeah,
that dude's terrible.
It's sad too. However, the one thing, and they do it in such a way where you really do feel for the Espers, because they were double crossed, you were double crossed, you led them basically right there to them, so it's like you're kind of responsible now. I think the irony, though, that the note that I wrote down that I think is a little that is maybe overlooked a little bit is that, I mean, you've absorbed Espers too. Like, you literally you're using them as we speak, during all of this. And so, yeah, they kind of sacrifice themselves for you, I guess, because they were like prisoners or something. But
right, they were all, I
don't know,
at death's door anyway. Yeah, it's
guess,
a little foggy.
But yeah, if it's, you know what I mean? Like, it's like you're not innocent, completely innocent either. So, but they gloss over that for obvious reasons. But
I guess Terra wasn't even with you when you did that. I was going to say, but Terra's with you, but of course Terra wasn't with you at that point. Yeah, so there is some moral equivalency problems there, for sure.
Yeah. And then Kefka and Leo fight, and there's actually a pretty, in this engine at least, sort of a pretty rough scene where Kefka takes him out. And they again flash the screen red when he does it to kind of punctuate the moment. And I didn't really fully grok exactly how bad it was. And then they have a scene where they're at his grave, which is pretty rough as well. So, I mean, he didn't spend a lot of time with Leo, but killing a character like that, I don't know, pretty impressive move.
Yeah, I mean, and the whole thing was, of course, he was the head general, before Kefka poisoned Doma, right? So you had seen him there as well, behaving, and
honorably,
behaving at least, honorably in that sense. Even though he was still leading the engines of war, there were things he certainly wasn't going to do, and he was holding Kefka back from doing. So for him to meet his end at Kefka's hands is pretty rough.
Yeah, that's true. I didn't think of that, but yeah, they had a connection that
Yeah, he was
but the
established.
good guy lost, so
Yep.
there, I mean, as far as like 16-bit pixelated tiny little villains, you get to
It's
see
hard
him.
to imagine somebody more terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, with the whole poisoning of Doma and that thing, and then with Cyan's whole story, and then, I mean, you do get to see him in the battle mode occasionally, in more clarity, his artwork, which is cool. He looks very, he reminds me of Louis XIV or something, in that artwork. That's sort of he's kind of like laid. Do you remember how that looks when you're fighting him and he's got full art? He's kind of laying back, and he's very like,
he's reclined. Yeah,
he's sort of ballet like in a way, which is one of Louis XIV's whole thing. And I don't know, it feels like that kind of villain, and his laugh, of course. So they're doing a great job building him up over the course, which is not common. I feel like a lot of times, you don't. I know that Sephiroth is, or whatever that guy's name is, another infamous Final Fantasy villain, but I don't know if that's his name or if he actually is a villain.
It is Sephiroth. He is a villain, and he is built up pretty well.
Yeah, so they're getting good at that, but not always the case. So, and especially with a little pixelated guy like this. So,
yeah, and then I think we've covered everything that happens at that point, because that's basically you get back to they show up in the airship, I guess, maybe, and the rest of the party's there, and they're basically like, well, maybe we should go to that floating island, right? So they direct you to what to go to next, the floating continent.
They open the gate again, and there's these statues that they want to get to, which I don't completely follow, but they're like the origin of magic. And then doesn't that trigger because the island actually, the floating continent breaks off of the planet,
right? Correct.
And rises above.
Yeah.
Also,
that's right.
Weirdly like alien in its artwork. I feel like it's, it doesn't look.
Yeah, it's Geiger-esque.
It's Geiger-esque, and similar to some stuff that Chrono Trigger had as well, as my recollection. There's some sections.
It's the body of the many all over again.
Yeah, that's what it was. Yeah, or something like, So
we've talked about like that, the influence of like all that organic type art in the 90s, and we sort of think of it as being a 3D thing, but it's really, it came to the 3D late, because it was already all over the place in the 2D. Chrono Trigger even has that stuff that we talked about then, so that organic stuff. But
I'm wondering what the repercussions of that really are. The fact that it is alien-like and it broke off from the planet. So I don't know. That's something weird. Hopefully they resolve.
Yeah, I mean, I think you'll get a sense of that as you finish the floating continent. Maybe a little bit. Yeah, they've kind of prefigured it a little bit. I don't want to say too much because you haven't seen it, but yeah, you'll see all the stuff that happens in the next time. Yeah. And I guess the only other topic that we haven't touched on, and probably should, you had mentioned it, was like the managing of the number of spells.
Yeah, because I'm so focused on magic for whatever reason, and I scan everything that I fight, just to kind of like see if I know what the vulnerabilities are and stuff, and it generally pays off, because you do so much damage if you pick the right vulnerability. And then I'm also always frustrated if I don't scan and pick the wrong one and I heal them, so that kind of thing.
Right.
And I feel like it's happening more and more, but, and I haven't even scratched the surface as far as like, getting everyone to have every Esper so they can have every spell kind of thing. So, I guess each of my characters probably has 10 or so spells, and not all of them are redundant. So I have luckily I have the non-active time battle, whatever that's called, wait. I have wait turned on. So the menus, I'm not stressed for time necessarily, but I don't know. It's just like imagining having the full list, filled in
it's a little overwhelming.
Characters. Yeah. And I'm just thinking of it from a design perspective. It's like, it's cool that there is so much. And I guess at the end of the day, it's just, it's good to have lots of choices and to be able to play the way that you kind of like, you find your own sort of groove and how you want to use your magic. And usually people just kind of stick with a certain set that they really like using. And that's fun because it'll probably feel different either every time you play or feel different between players. But at some point I feel like there's sort of diminishing returns on so many different things.
Well, I mean, all the enemies, I mean, these are all things that the enemies can do as well, right? So I think some of the variety is intended to be, reinforcing the monster design, the enemy design.
Yeah.
And at that point it's like, well, this is magic in the world. Why wouldn't we just give it to the characters? And of course it's coming through other, alien creatures or monstrous creatures, if you can think of the Espers that way, because it's coming through the Espers, right? So there's a sense to me of like, it makes a certain symmetric sense, but from a gameplay standpoint, I absolutely agree. Like I sometimes go and page down on characters who have a lot of spells. I'm like, and I'll just back out. Like, it's like I just open the door and I look and I'm like, no, I'm just going to gently close that door.
Yeah. Yeah.
There's just too much going on behind there. And I don't feel like I need it still. Right. So it's like, I do occasionally dip in and use like a Bolt 2 or, I've been using more of the Esper stuff as well. The Shoat does, petrify, so that's kind of cool and useful because that'll just kill a whole field of enemies at times, certain ones. So the combat will just end. Right? I mean, it's just like, they all just disappear. So there's things like that I use, or I use Phantom and I make us all invisible, which makes us not hittable until you cure or they manage to land something. Certain of the creatures do that life shaver or whatever, and even at 0 that makes you reappear. That's annoying, but it's it's fine. So there's been things I've been doing that for, and like I kind of always want to have Phantom and the Shoat enabled just because I want to have their special abilities, and the rest of them I kind of don't care. I've just been kind of swapping them out to power people up. So but it's a lot. I'm really just doing it in anticipation of needing it someday more than anything else. Yeah.
And I mean, it definitely, from a symmetry perspective, I definitely love how they are repurposing and kind of everyone's sharing that magic. And it does make sense to me for sure. I think I just tend to like, maybe when characters specialize in, I feel like maybe this happened in Final Fantasy IX, or maybe I guess Chrono Trigger is a good example too, where, like their thing is this. And so you have you have a specific reason to bring them with you versus like the possibility that everyone can have everything is a little like, it waters things down a little bit, when that's the case.
Yeah.
So
waters character down. I mean, I think that they devil's advocate, they reinforce character through like everybody having their own sort of specials. But at that point it's like, well, why would everybody be able to get every magic? Like it feels like there might have been a way to tie that stuff better together. So it felt a little more thematic, like because you do these things, you only identify with these Espers would kind of be an interesting choice, to a different direction to take it. And it would make it a little more mentally tenable in terms of like planning ahead. Cause like, I don't know, like I'm not, the next person who's going to come up, I'm not thinking about what magic they're going to do because who knows how many different things they can do. So I'm not even using magic that much, right? I mostly use it for curing and stuff like that. And occasionally I'll use an Esper or on some of these enemies on the floating continent with Bolt 2, because I know it'll probably take them out. But I feel that. I feel that for sure. We're running low on time for you. Do you want to look at any email or do you need to dash?
Maybe we'll save it. Let's save it for next time. Yeah. And we'll build it up and maybe, do a little extra email segments for the next couple episodes
we're going to have to catch up because we do have quite a bit, but
I think it's fine. I mean, we're going to have fewer and fewer gameplay topics.
Yeah.
So, I think if we do a big chunk of email for the next couple episodes.
Well, I know we have a couple topics coming up that we're going to have to talk about next time. And so speaking of next time, you're going to have to finish off this time.
Yeah, unfortunately.
And that's fine. And you'll know, like I said, you'll know when it happens. And then, like I said, we're opening up a bit. So I think we're just going to have to give ourselves our own free reign at that point and talk about the things we did, like we did back in Chrono Trigger days.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
And I think that'll be fine. We'll just kind of play whatever amount of time you have, and I'll have more time probably, so I may touch on more stuff than you do. But we will probably do another 2 weeks, I think, because I think there's enough there, and we're going to have to do our takeaways in that second week as well. Plus, do you?
Right. Yeah. So I think 2 weeks that's reasonable. I think especially for quality of life reasons. Do you think so? After the open area, the opening up of the world, is there probably like a linear section toward the end or something, or is
that would be my expectation based on prior Final Fantasies?
Okay. Yeah. But that's not like you don't think that'll be an extended, like?
I have no idea.
No idea.
I have no idea.
Okay.
So I would suggest getting in as much time as you can this week, if you can carve out some evening time.
Yeah. I will
on weeknights. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm planning to do some extra sessions to do that, and then maybe the last session I'll keep for assuming that I'll assume that the last linear section is going to be longer than I want it to be. So then just do that the last session or something. So.
All right, fair enough. Well, we haven't had any new reviews in a couple of weeks, so send those along if you've got them, or just tell a friend. We are entirely word of mouth supported. Thanks for those who share with their friends and help grow the audience. And of course, we take email at devgameclub@gmail.com. You can find us on the web at devgameclub.com or on Twitter at devgameclub. We can also find my co-host at
Tim Longo Jr. with a JR at the end.
Prolific tweeter. And you can also find us on Twitch. You've got the same Twitch channel. You are still stranding America.
Yep. However, you realize I need to cancel tonight, but yeah, I will. I'm still doing that. I'm over halfway across America now and making some good headway. So. And, come check it out.
Come check out Death Stranding. I've been streaming Dragon Quest Heroes weeknights. I'm gonna be doing like 2 or 3 weeknights. For a while I was trying to pump that up, but I don't think we can do more than that between recording and editing the podcast. And then on the weekends I play whatever we're playing for the cast. So it'll be Final Fantasy VI on the weekends. That tends to draw a few more people. Come on by. Both of these streams are fun and small and cozy little audiences. So it's nice to see folks. Our intro and outro music was written and performed by Kirk Hamilton, commissioned by friend of the cast Aaron Evers, and our logo is by Mark Garcia. Have fun working out with your puffed up aerobics instructors this week, and good night.
Good night.